I was gonna say crying my balls out.
don't have
Crying my
balls.
boobs out. Hello, I'm Flavia.
Hello, I'm Fernanda. Welcome to Lightworkers Unhinged, where two sisters or friends talk about all things that we want to talk about unhingedly. That's what I'm going to say today.
We wanted to share with you a little bit about the books we read this month and the things that we learned from them.
Yes, and also other stuff that we've studied this month and how we spent our,
Free
time. Free time this month and things that we like to do, and the great books that we read and the ones that absolutely sucked. So that's gonna be my take for at least one of the books. But yeah,
mind you, Fernanda reads a lot. Like, she has so many books, so that's why there are sometimes the chances of some books being really shitty.
Yeah, and I go off on people's recommendations a lot, so if someone says like, oh, I love this book, I'm very easily sold on propaganda, it's like I am the target, so someone just says like, oh my god, there's this and that, and then if the person is excited about it, I immediately just get excited about it. If it is like, I don't know, like a product or a book, a TV show, a movie, I'm the target.
Yeah, absolutely. Me, if it's from the LGBT community, I'm like immediately gonna read it. And if it is something that the book I'm reading, the author recommends, I'm also immediately gonna read it.
Oh, you mean like
add to my list.
The author in the book said like, oh, I read this book.
Yes.
And then, okay.
Then I'm like, okay, now I need to read it to understand this book that I'm reading now completely. Because this was part of your inspiration.
Totally. So I wanted to talk about the first book that I read this year because it was very intentional for me. I was reading a book in December that I didn't finish, in time for it to be December's book. I was like halfway through and I just couldn't, holidays and everything. So I didn't want that book to be the first book that I finished. So it would be like the first book that I was reading because I was like, no, that's not how I want to start my year, my reading year. So I purposefully chose The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho to be the first book that I read this year. It is a book that I'm pretty sure I read when I was younger, like when I was a teen. And Paulo Coelho is a Brazilian author, if maybe people don't know, and he's a huge deal in Brazil, I'll say. Like, he's very well regarded and one of the biggest and most renowned, I'll say, authors in the country, right? So it was a little bit of that, like everybody likes it so much. I do have that, and they've said that it's a neurodivergent thing, and I'm gonna chalk it up to that. That if people recommend things like too much, there's a limit. If people keep talking about it everywhere you go, and if there is that one person in your life, like your father, that really wants you to read something as a teenager, you're like, I don't want to do this, and I don't think I'm gonna like this. And I think that was the case because I always read a lot of books and I always shared books with my dad, and this is one that he's like, you gotta read it or whatever. And then I was like, it sounds like something that you're gonna write an essay on, for like an English class is what I would compare it to. We have literature in high school. So I remember like reading it and thinking it was interesting, but not absorbing any of the material. Have you read The Alchemist?
Not yet. For the same reasons.
Yes, you're gonna like it.
Yeah. I remember hearing a lot about Paulo Coelho when I was in school. And I think my mom had some books, and my favorite teacher didn't like him.
Oh.
She said something about that book specifically being, very shitty or something. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to waste my time. It was one of the only ones that I really took the opinion.
Like the bad vibes from someone else.
I was like, okay, I'm not going to read it. Doesn't, and then I never did.
One of those things that you need to mature a little bit, I think.
Absolutely.
Not just like the whole situation we just talked about, but the kind of book that it is. It is like I think it's much more interesting if you look through the lenses of being spiritually aware, you know, and then it makes more sense for you. And I don't know where Paulo Coelho stands in all of that, but it definitely comes from a place within him that has like an awareness of what he's talking about. So I liked it. You know, I thought it was an interesting read, but it's not all that for me personally. You know, it wouldn't be my first, like, oh my God, this is the best book that I've ever read, you know. But again, mind me that I do read a lot, and it's not my genre, to be honest. You know, like I much prefer, you know, more like a fantasy that has a whole like world building behind it, where I can really feel creative while I am reading the book. But it's a very interesting story, and I can totally understand like, oh, this makes so much sense, and it has so much spiritual meaning in the book, and it's a beautiful tale, you know, and there's like a little bit of romance, and there's like alchemy and how people talk about it and all of that, and you know, a lot of symbology as well that is fascinating. But again, not it will be like a 5 stars for me out of,
is
no,
it told
4
like
stars out of 5 is what I mean.
Is it told like is it the author telling a story, or is it like a first person, you're inside of the mind of a character kind of thing?
For the life of me, I cannot remember right now. I don't remember.
Okay.
I think it is, I don't know, because it somewhat feels a little impersonal to me, the way that the story is being told. But I'm almost sure that it's in third person.
Okay.
It's not the person, you know, the main character telling the story. Do not quote me on this, and I'm so sorry whoever loves this book. I totally understand the passion, and I think he's a great author. I've read other books from him, you know, The Valkyries, I think, is one of them. But anyways, I don't quote me on anything. Just that. Do you know which one was your first book of the year?
Yes, mine was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Nice.
And this was a book that I read from a recommendation from another book. I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, something like that. And he recommends that book as one of the foundations of learning about finances and, you know, how to deal with your money. And this is something that I've been really trying to educate myself in, because I did not grow up with financial
Knowledge.
awareness or knowledge. Yeah. And that's something I want to change, because, you know, not repeating my family's patterns. So I started reading this. I finished reading Think and Grow Rich. And it was really interesting because it's a book from 1937, which, you know, has many outdated things and things that do not apply anymore nowadays, of course. But it caught me by surprise with the amount of spiritual teachings that he adds to the practice of, you know, making money and creating your dream life.
And do you think that he had that awareness, that he was like a highly spiritual practitioner person, or that it just came natural as, like, you know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he did, even though he didn't speak about it like with, you know, using all the words. He did have a mentor, and he did use many techniques that I don't think that if you are aware, you would use all of them so clearly, you know.
Maybe he had like some practices, like a meditation and an awareness of, you know, a deeper awareness of what energy means.
I don't know where he's from or what religion was the dominant one in the area he's from, so talking about spirituality in an open way like that maybe wasn't
and
acceptable
in those times, you know, those days.
But the thing I was most surprised about in this book, because he talks a lot about, you know, how the brain is an antenna for other people's thoughts, and the environment you're in, you know, it influences everything that you do, and trying to reprogram your mind to use positive thinking and things like that, which is great, using desire and imagination and all that. But the thing that most shocked me was he talking about sex magic and sacred sexuality, and doing that with a compatible partner. So it's not just with anyone with a one-night stand. It is a whole process and a sacred moment. And the way that he talked about it, I was very surprised.
I have a question. So how does he refer to it? Does he say like sex magic, sacred sexuality? Or you just understand because that's what he means and you know?
I understand because that's what he means. He says
okay.
using the sexual energy to, he talks about channeling the sexual energy in other areas of your life, not only in sex. So for your creativity and to apply that in your job and to impose your desires and things like that. He talks about enhancing that energy during a sexual act with a compatible partner.
That is fascinating for, again, someone that perhaps, and we don't know anything about this person, right? You didn't research his life or anything.
Yeah.
So he could very well be like
a spiritual master that talks about this.
Like and just wrote this book on the theme because he had such success in the field, maybe. But that's fascinating. That's super cool.
Fascinating. And he does talk about all of these as a practice. So there are 12 principles. And the sex magic one is one of the last. And after that, after you've mastered all this, he also talks about accessing the infinite intelligence that is like the universe consciousness and all that, and to use that for creative ways for you to apply it in your job or find quick decision making and all that. So fascinating.
That is super cool.
And
he teaches it like, well, does he teach it in the book or does he tell about his experience only? It's like he teaches you techniques and things to do to access this.
Yes,
this is super cool.
It's almost like watching a seminar.
Oh, okay. That's nice. Sounds fun.
This is so much the base for so many people that, focus their lives on making money, that many of the books I've read after or even before mention this book. So, and they talk about these techniques being like secret techniques. That,
like secret society type stuff?
Like really famous people would use, like...
Einstein.
Tesla. And Lincoln and all these big names. And that they are kind of exposing it to the public. But it's like the information is there.
Yeah.
When you're ready, you're going to find it. Like the student will find the teacher when they're ready. Yeah.
That is cool.
So what was the next book that you read?
Well, the next one, I finished the one that I was reading in December that I did not want to be the first one that I was. And it's not that it's a bad book. I like romance, and it's just like a romance novel. It's called It Starts With Us from Colleen Hoover. It's a second one in a duology, and I think it's going to be a duology. I don't know if she's gonna keep writing them, but there's a movie coming out this year from the first one that it ends with us, and it had been a very long time since I read that one, and I remember liking it, but it being a little traumatizing because her books are like an emotional roller coaster. But I read the first one again because the second one just released last year, so I wanted to refresh my memory of it. And oh my God, it is an emotional roller coaster. So I even read like some other books of her that I had already read before, but this one was entertaining. It was not the best, much more, I'll say, it was milder than the other one. The other one is heavy. Like check, if you want to read it, check the trigger warnings because it talks about abusive relationships and things like that. So, but it was just like, I had a couple of hours last, of the audiobook. So, but I'm counting it as the book that I read this year. Anyways. But the next one was another book that a lot of people have read, especially in the spiritual communities, that I don't think I've ever read it before.
Yeah, I watched the documentary.
Yeah, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, right? I think that's how you pronounce. If I pronounce anything wrong, just excuse my English. But it's a very cool book too, because it talks about the law of attraction and how that has one of the laws of the universe and how it impacts like so many aspects of your life. And it is a very simple explanation of the law of attraction, which brought me into a good space, I think, to create new practices, which is what I feel like I'm going through right now. And it brought me back to the simple, because I think that perhaps I don't know how it's perceived, the way that we've been doing things on Patreon, for example, on our Lightworkers 613 Patreon, that the classes we've been teaching and the channelings we've been doing and all that. But personally, I felt like it got very expensive, and also it became like something that was not as grounded for me. It's harder to embody when you kind of see through the lenses of the universe,
You access all that information,
Yeah.
and suddenly it becomes this pool of,
Yeah.
a lot.
And then you're like, how do I even
things.
apply those things, So I think that this is a lot of what I'm, choosing to do, and learn some techniques, or, apply some techniques in my daily life to truly embody those things. And no better way than to start with the simple things, right?
Yeah.
So it brought me back into that feeling like, oh yeah, this is so simple. And because I've seen, so many other layers of the same thing, for example, so many other layers of the law of attraction and how it correlates with other laws of the universe, and it doesn't work alone, so forth and so forth. And then I started just getting all of this awareness of these things, and it becomes so hard to apply it in your life that you don't even realize that you are not applying it in your life, because it's a concept much more a concept in your mind than a daily practice that you have. So I loved reading this because it brought me back to the simple. It brought me back to, oh yeah, it's so easy. It's like literally just changing your thoughts. And again, there's such a strong correlation with what you were just saying about the Grow Rich one. What is the name of it again?
Think and Grow
Think
Rich.
and Grow Rich. Yeah. And again, it talks a lot about that. And I read many other books about this exact theme. How to change the composition of your thoughts and then change your life. And again, we know that, and we've been working with this, and we've been teaching about this, but it's like it gets like there's so much information sometimes that we are receiving, that we are working with, that we are teaching, that it's like a lot of noise, and you're not really embodying any of that. And I don't want to do that anymore, So it was a great read for me to kind of bring me back and in how simple those things can be, and how easy it can be to change your thoughts, right? And your thought patterns. Even if it hasn't yet changed your emotional state about the thought, you can choose again, and through this practice and through consistency and focus, you can change anything about your life, especially your thoughts. So it was very interesting, It's like that same that feeling that you get when another light bulb is on, but on the same room that you already had the light on.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Did you read that one too?
I read that one too, and I loved how simple she made the technique be,
Yeah.
and how the practices were not only shown as they were applied for different people, that this is great.
Yeah.
They all seem very achievable, like things that you can do in your daily basis. It's not like, oh my god, I need to practice for 5 years to start doing this one practice.
Yeah.
No, it's something that you can start doing right now.
Yeah.
And in your day-to-day life, and that using that to reprogram your unconscious actions and conversations that you have towards yourself as well.
Yes, that's exactly what I was referring to, that it's easier than we made it to be for ourselves.
Yes.
Again, I don't know if this has translated for people that have been following our stuff, if maybe it got a little too out there for other people too.
Yeah.
I have not received this feedback yet. Maybe now we will.
Maybe now we will.
But for us personally, in our daily lives, it can be very, what is the word to use for this? Like, it's not challenging. It's just a lot. It's chaotic sometimes to be a channel, is what I'm going to say, right?
Oh, yes.
Because again, there's just so much energy going on all the time, and you're working with other people, and then like doing sessions, for example, doing like you do Reiki for other people, and you interact with them via email all the time too. So you're always on people's energies, and they are always like interacting with you. And maybe it's just us, but we tend to forget how chaotic that can become for us and our bodies. And every once in a while you get a new push and like stop, and your body starts telling you something. So I think that this was very inspiring for me, not just The Secret, but the next two that I also read. They were very short reads from Neville Goddard, and again, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing names wrong. One is Feeling is the Secret, and the other is Control Your Inner Conversations, which is, again, a little bit on the same theme. And I love grabbing those like very short reads in audiobook as I am, doing my morning routine and I'm getting like breakfast ready or something. I've been loving to do that. It's like setting the mood for the day with something that is in alignment with what I want to do. And all of those things, they've been very like all of those books and going deeper into learning and relearning and experiencing those things through more mature eyes has been so inspiring, in creating those conversations with yourself, especially that, because I do not have harsh thoughts about other people. I only have them about myself. It's like I never think about the world as like, oh my God, the world is burning into flames and everything is going down. I always have a very loving, I'll say, outlook from me to the world. Yeah. But it's not that I'm trying to say mean things to myself, but it's just a voice that has been there, conditioned to be there for a very long time. And it gets to a point where you don't remember it. That is there. It's just there all the time. So you go through a mirror and then the voice says something. But the voice is you and you gotta tame the voice. So it's been very interesting to, go back to the basics and recreate some foundations, I think, that will help me a lot in the things that I want to do and in the job that I perform and all of that. So it's been a very interesting month.
Continuing about this idea of the book The Secret, something else that I thought while reading this book The Secret was about how because we are like this, we like doing different things, we do tend to, like you said, to approach many different subjects in our classes and channelings and all that. And it did make me understand, after living this past couple of years, and having this very expansive mind, then and now we are trying to shrink back to the body.
Yeah,
it made me understand those people that dedicate their whole lives to one subject, to one practice.
Yeah,
because it is way more centering.
Yeah,
to find this balance between many practices, many different strains of knowledge.
Yeah,
is really tricky. And it's something that we are finding our way towards, because we do like doing different things. So we are learning how to
And I think it might
manage.
be just like the things that we have to offer to the world as, as a team and as individuals as well. And it might also be something that is coming with the new, like the new energies and the new generations and things like that. I do see that as something very positive and very exciting and very, inspirational for myself. I'm not even thinking about like other people, but that's exactly it. It's like finding that balance and creating something that resembles a routine that is not a routine, or do you understand what I mean? It's like it's creating something that makes sense for you to continue your practice, but that the foundation is going to be the same, but the themes are not going to be the same. And because we just get so bored. Just as an example, if it's not making sense for someone, for example, we do channelings monthly. We do 2 channelings monthly. And we've been doing different beings for these channelings. So we have 2 channelings, we have 1 class, we have 1 ceremony, and 1 Ask Us Anything. Those are things that happen every month on our Patreon. And for the longest time, each one of those events, we brought a different being. So it would be Goddess Isis or Yeshua or Mary Magdalene.
All mixed in the same month, 1 for each event.
Yeah, so it became too much because each one of them are individuals as well. if we think about it. And they all have their own agendas, the things that they want to come across and the people that they will reach. And for us, like, it's only the two of us and our physical bodies, you know, and our brains and voices bringing those things through. So it became like a lot. And I do think that it played a very important role for us in those instances. And I did love doing that. And I do love being able to access all of those beings. But perhaps, like you said, I can totally understand someone that chooses to only channel Yeshua, you know, so I am a Yeshua channel, and that's what I do. And even though they are accessing other consciousness, other beings, and other teachings, it comes through Yeshua. So it's much easier, much more grounding to do so. So the way that we kind of mitigated that was to do like, okay, we're going to have one being per month on Patreon, because we cannot do the same being every month. Because just thinking about the being that we are bringing next month brings me like a huge rush of excitement and creativity. And then there are a lot of things that I already see, you know, so I don't think we are meant to do the only one thing, but we are meant to create a foundation in which we can be healthy, we can be supported, you know, in every way, we can be financially, you know, sustainable in every way, and so forth and so forth. So,
and it does help a lot.
Sorry,
it's okay. And it does help a lot for us to create this deeper connection with the beings and understand. Because it's like when you have your best friend lives far, far away and they come to visit for only one day. Yeah. That sucks. So now they come to visit for 1 month. Yeah. Oh my God, you have so much things to do together. And that's kind of what it feels like to have one being the whole month. Because we have different events and different moments and we can understand their energy, how they show themselves to us. And the same happens to our patrons, because then they can recognize that energy as well in their lives. Much easier than just, you know, bring this whole party
for like 1 or
raving
2 hours
the whole month with spirit guides. Like,
exactly. It's a bit much. So it's been very interesting for me to connect with, you know, those other authors, I'll say, and see some of their work. And also it's fascinating because a lot of people in the spiritual communities, they have, you know, read all of those books and they have learned all of those things. So also let me know which ones should we read next, you know, on these themes and things like that. We would love to hear your opinions.
Please do. So the next book I read was Count Your Lucky Stars by Alexandra Belfleur. Again, don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. I'm sorry if I'm not. And it is the third book of a trilogy. This book I actually read the first time.
Oh, no. You're going to tell them.
Yes, I'm going to tell them. Last year, I don't know when, maybe middle of the last year. And I realized this month, that it is a trilogy. And I started by the third one. So I went back, read number 1, number 2, and then I had to read the third one again.
Of course. Because you did it wrong.
Yeah. And it is a very cute romance. It's a lesbian romance. Adorable, very well represented, very, very sweet, and I think was very mature because both they show a lot of conversation between the partners, and they tell the story of 3 different partners in this trilogy, and they all come up, you know, in all of the books. The character development was really nice. It was steady. And it was a book that I read just for fun. And it's nice to see unproblematic relationships being represented. Yes. Because, oh my God, those problematic relationships happen.
Yeah.
You know, but when I'm enjoying, you know, my free time and just wanting to have a little fun.
Yeah, not all the time you want to read about other people's
It's nice to read a good, you know, loving romance.
Yeah, like a cozy. It's like a cozy romance that you just, you know, it's just fun and not giving you palpitations, you know, and things like that. Totally. That's not my vibe most of the time. I need to be in a very specific mood that I want to be caressed by the book that happens. Most of the time I'm reading things that are a little bit more like they're adventure and action and things like that. In a more like fantasy scenario or world. But I do like reading those too. And I don't know if it's because most books that I've read are like they give me heart palpitations and they destroy me by the end, that it's harder for me to find this genre, that is just like a cozy, everything is just gonna work out most of the time, and they're gonna have their disagreements and things are gonna happen like life, but it's not gonna be anything devastating like one of them's gonna die. Oh my god, because that's like why am I doing this? I stopped reading some of those books exactly because of that, like John Green, for example. He's brilliant. I love him. I love Hank as well.
Yeah.
Great guys. Yay. But what is wrong with you? Oh my god.
So sad.
It's so
I
oh
cannot.
no.
I couldn't bring myself to read. I only watched it.
The movie?
movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it was just too much.
It's like he's the author of The Fault in Our Stars and Looking for Alaska, and oh my god, it's just too much, and the same with Colleen Hoover. It's like, who hurt you?
Yeah, not for me also.
My god.
Because of that, it's really intense, because
Yeah.
usually I don't read. I just figured that out about myself, that I don't read as much of fantasy or romance and things like that. I read, I don't even know the genres. Like I read this Think and Grow Rich, this kind of books that I read much more like teachings and things like that than stories. So when I do get a story to read, when I take one, I cannot. I don't bring the trauma, because my god, I need to relax.
Yeah.
Not be crying my eyes out.
Yeah.
I was gonna say crying my balls out.
don't have
crying
balls.
my boobs out.
Yeah, I do like, those books. They are more intense and they have like a strong plot, that someone actually thought it through, and you can follow that. So I love reading series because of that, because it has more room for things to evolve and everything. But sometimes I just want to read something that is short, and not gonna fully traumatize me and gonna make me think about it for ages. But one of the books that I read this year also, because I read, so far I've read 10 and I am in the middle of the 11th, but it's not gonna make for January anymore. So I'll talk about it maybe next month. But one of them is, I think it's the 4th book in a series from Raven Kennedy, and it's called Glow, and it is like a retelling of King Midas, but with a twist, And again, this is like the first one is called, I'm gonna look it up. Well, it's the Plated Prisoner series from Raven Kennedy, and this is another one, like, check the trigger warnings, because it's a very heavy, like, dark fantasy. It's not for the faint of heart, it is, that there's a lot of violent things happening in the book. And it's one of the books that sometimes I need a break from it. It's like, I can't be reading this right now, this is not doing well, it's not helping my mental health right now. But it is a fun, creative book, I'll say. Not my favorite by any means, at least, like, not this last one. The one before was more entertaining than this one. This one was a little, rushed in a way, and I don't know, but it's a fun series.
I think that after you read both series, or all of the series maybe, from Sarah J. Maas, it's hard to top.
She ruined me.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
It's so good. At least the 2 series that I read were really good, and they are your favorites
right now. They are, yes, and I understand that it's like, one thing that I should have mentioned already, I am very easy to impress with books. I am not a picky reader by any means. It's like, literally, I will just be okay with, mediocre writing. I am absolutely okay with that. If the story is fun, if the characters are fun and have nuance, or if there's anything at all that is going on that for me feels, worth my time, that's how I love spending my time anyway. So I don't watch a lot of movies, I don't watch a lot of TV shows, I don't listen to a lot of music. I read all the time that I can. So I'm not very picky with anything, So for example, 50 Shades of Grey, is it a good book? No. Have I read it multiple times? Yes, of course. It's like the writing is not the best, nothing against the lady that wrote it. Great for you. But actually, like, the writing isn't so good, But who am I to judge? It's just a fun story, Does it make you want to slap people in the face in the book sometimes? It does. But, do you want to take them by hand and take them to therapy? Yes, you
absolutely.
do. But
the amount
again,
of times that we face characters and we go like, oh my God,
you need
please
therapy.
put this character in,
Yes.
in therapy.
Because we do therapy and we
Yeah.
understand how important it is.
Yeah.
This is not us like saying like, oh my God, go get therapy. No, we know that actually, if you agree with this that you're reading here in the book, you also need therapy. But anyways,
everybody needs therapy.
everybody, yes, it's a great thing to
Chaotic
do.
world.
Absolutely. But anyway, so this was a fun read that it's a bigger book, a longer book. So it was like a 24-hour audio or something like that, which is much, bigger than, I don't know, like a Colleen Hoover that is 8 or something like that. The Alchemist, I think it was only like 4 hours. And that's my preferred method of reading right now is audiobooks, and I do consider that to be reading, and I'll fight anyone that thinks that it's not reading because I'm reading it, I'm just reading it with my ears. But then I just finished this series, and we do not have the last book yet. I have no idea when she's releasing it, so I went on TikTok as one does, and I was looking for other similar books, that is like a dark fantasy too, because I was like, okay, I still like this vibe. And maybe people say that there is this thing that like I'm a vibe reader or something like that you go off like, right now I'm feeling like thrillers, so I'm reading thrillers, So I was still on that vibe, and I saw someone recommending a book, and I'm still angry about it.
Even I am angry,
oh
and
my
I didn't
God.
even read it.
So the book is called The Never King, and I do not recommend, I'll say that again, I do not recommend this book. Again, I am not someone that is hard to impress with books. I like most things. I am not picky at all. I don't read things and I'm not that kind of like critical person that reads a book and like, oh, I wish they had, no. If the plot is bad, I'm going to comment on the plot because I always have like, oh my God, you should have done this with that. Yeah. I do have my asshole-ish opinions about things sometimes and arrogant about some things in books, yes. But I'm not a person that would be like, oh yeah, just it's a book and it's fun. And I read it and I finished it and it's okay. And it was fun. Oh my God, this freaking book. I hate it so much. I hate every single thing about it. And I'm so sorry. I don't know if by any chance the person that wrote the book is listening. I am so sorry, Nikki St. Crow. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong too. But for fuck's sake, it's the most misogynist thing I've ever read written by a woman. I'm still angry about it. And you will not convince me otherwise, because I think that she tried to make it the opposite, like empowering the woman to have 4 different partners, which if that's your kink, if that's what you want to do, power to you. You go into you, have nothing to do with that. But the way that they treat the girl, and she's a girl, she's 18. Oh my God. And the way that they treat her like shit, and that she's like crawling on their feet, and it's extremely sexual in a very bad vibey way, because the dude kidnaps her and takes her to a room. It's a retelling of Peter Pan, and he is a fucking psychopath, is what I'm gonna say. Oh my God. Do you know when you get like, I don't know if that happens to you, it's like you're watching a movie or you're reading a book and you're so deep into it that you forget that you can stop reading it, that you can stop watching it. So I read the first book and I was hopeful that it was gonna be like, okay, this main character is going to have like a turning point, or they're going to create, like, oh, it will become apparent that this is a very problematic, abusive relationship that needs to stop at some point, which is like what Sarah J. Maas does. In some given point, I don't know, she will meet someone else, or she will get on her senses, she will feel more empowered, whatever that is. So I finished the first book. I read to the middle of the second book on the series. And then I had that realization, oh my God, I don't need to finish this. You get so deep in the story, it's like, oh my God, everybody needs therapy. Everybody that likes this book, I think, needs therapy, because there is something there that you need to check, because if you accept that as being something that you recommend for other people, I don't know, maybe I didn't get to the part of the book where the revelation would come and I'm being the asshole, but Jesus Christ, I have never, oh my God,
Yeah.
I can't.
This kind of idea that happens a lot of romanticizing bad relationships,
No.
being treated shitty, and especially if it is towards, if the target audience is like
Teenagers. Oh
or
my
even
God.
young
That's what I mean.
adults.
Yes.
This gotta stop, because
No.
it is, you're still developing your brain, you're still,
Yeah.
becoming a person. And
In this day and age,
yeah,
and you go and you put it there, and it's like people believe that maybe is the only relationship you've ever had in your life, with everybody, and everybody abuses you, and then you read it in a book and you see someone else recommending it to you. So it's okay, it's something that's normal. Let's denormalize abuse. For example,
please.
oh my God, I cannot stand reading books that the characters are teenagers anymore, unless they are unless the teenagers are the main character telling a story about their past. That's okay. Or if the teenager is someone's son or daughter or kid, great, then I can do it. But if the main characters are 18 and 19, I feel like this is not my thing anymore. I can't be reading about this because I'm 30, and it feels so,
I understand.
oh my God, it's so icky.
And books that we read years ago that were, teenage characters, and we thought it was, oh my God, this is so good.
Oh my God.
And we reread it after, like now I'm 25 and you're 30. Like, what?
It's like,
not
oh my
for me
God.
anymore.
And then you
Thank
can
but no
totally
thank
understand, like, yes, I did need therapy.
Yeah.
Because I thought this was normal.
I'm so glad that I think differently now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
People grow. That's great.
Great.
So I read another very short one that is called Brain Heart Coherence, by the Sapiens Network. I think it's like one of like a class or something that was also very interesting, that brought me to read one of Deepak Chopra's book, that is Escaping the Prison of the Intellect, which was, again, it's like going back to the simple things and returning to the awareness that, oh, actually life is simple and we keep problematizing things a lot. But it was interesting, and I don't know, for me he has such a cool vibe, Deepak Chopra.
Yeah.
I love his accent, and he is the one narrating the book, so it was also very, very interesting. And he talked about a lot in this book. I don't know if you've read it, this book from Deepak Chopra.
Not yet.
He talks about like the identification that we have with the body, with the mind, with our professions, and that we are not that. So basically that's the theme of the book, I would say, at least through my perspective, is that understanding that you are source, right? That you are the I am, and that you cannot find it in time, you cannot find it in the body, you cannot find, you are kind of hosting your soul in your body and things like that. And those are like interesting points of view and everything. And I don't know how long ago the book was written. By the picture of it, it's like at least like 20 years old, I would think.
Really?
Because of his picture in the front page of the thing, But it's just fascinating to read those things again that most people in their spiritual journeys have already tapped into. And there are so many other ones that I already have saved, on this. But I love, seeing those perspectives and seeing how they are activated in my own mind, in my own body and things like that. It's just very interesting. And those are the kind of books that I take as like things that I'm learning, so that I study, and then it instigates me to read more about the mind, for example, and the connections that scientists are making between the mind and spirituality, and quantum physics and spirituality and all of that, which I am fascinated about.
Me
It's
too.
just
It's incredible.
so freaking cool.
Yes.
Especially like psychology. So for example, like the psychology of manifestation, and how your brain works and how training your brain actually works in the physical. So it's just very interesting to me personally.
The book that I'm currently reading talks a lot about this, the psychology behind the manifestation and behind everything that you do. Very interesting.
Yeah, I love that, and I love researching about it. So whenever I read one of those books, whenever they instigate this sense of, ooh, let me go and look into it, I go to like YouTube, and I go looking for courses to do and things like that, and learning from, people that have different perspectives. Because for me, I feel like it's so interesting to see like a doctor's perspective, and someone that is very skeptical. If you tell them about the law of attraction, what are they gonna say? For example, I love hearing about it. For me, it's not triggering at all that someone has a different opinion than me and a different belief. I just think it's fascinating, especially if the person is open-minded enough to also be able to listen, right? If not, like someone is just bashing other people's beliefs either. But for me, it's just very interesting to look through different perspectives. So the last book that I read this month was Verity by Colleen Hoover, and it is a thriller. And it's been so long since I read a thriller, and this put me in the mood. It put me in a thriller mood, and now I'm already reading like another one that was like Reese's Witherspoon book club book,
nice.
that is called The Guest List. So I'm finishing it today probably, but I haven't yet. But I really liked Verity. It was not like shocking to me, like people are like, oh my god, the plot. But I read too much, so maybe that's why, like I'm always reading, and I also write, so I feel like I can be in the author's brain a lot. So nothing was very surprising about it, but the pace of the book, I thought it was great. The story is great. The characters are, entertaining in their own way. And there is that sense of like suspense, and not knowing exactly what is going on, but having a good idea, but, and being suspicious of everything and everyone. It's a little twisted as well, which I kind of like, especially seeing like different versions of women represented on books that I like, that it's not just like a proper, or when they are angry, it's not, stereotypical angry, it explores a little bit of a variety like that I really enjoy. But yeah, that's the last book that I read. And this one I would recommend if you like thrillers, and it's, for me personally, I thought it was a very mild thriller. It's not something, I saw someone, it was probably, I don't know who, on TikTok saying that they couldn't sleep, it's like it was creepy. But I get it that some people are, they don't like this kind of things, and it's scary.
But you also read a lot, so things don't faze you as much.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah,
but
you got me curious to read that one.
Yeah, this one was fun.
And I think because you and Bruno were talking about it and you both read it, so now I need to read it.
Fine, I'm going to read it too.
Fine.
And it's a very short read,
Yeah,
so it's
a fun read.
Yeah, it's fun. But yeah, so those were the things that, like, the books that we read and a little bit of what we learned this month.
Yeah, we would love to hear what books you're reading or you've read, and what are your favorites, if you have read any of the ones that we mentioned, and what you thought about it.
What are your thoughts, and what are the favorite ones? Like, what would you recommend for us to read? As you probably got like a good sense of it, I love reading and I'm always reading. So what are the ones that, perhaps you've read before and now you're reading it again and like, oh my God, this makes so much sense, whatever it is. So yeah, let us know what your thoughts are. We also want to invite you to join us on our Patreon for Lightworkers Unhinged if you are enjoying this podcast and if you want to support us so we can keep bringing them. We have 3 different tiers. Do you want to tell them what they're about?
Yeah, there's the first tier that you can access the community, that is the Unhinged supporter. Then there's the super Unhinged supporter, that you have not only access to the community, but you also have early access to our podcast, a new episode every week. And the mega Unhinged supporter that you have access to all of those things, and you get to send your suggestions and communicate or questions, whatever you
we want to create every month. One of our podcasts will be with suggestions or questions from our patrons. So if you have something very personal you want to ask us, or not personal at all, or if you have a suggestion for a podcast, that's the tier for you. And
you can send it anonymously as well if you don't want us to mention your name.
Yes.
So very flexible.
Yes, exactly. So thank you very much for being here with us today. I want to share one thing that I am grateful for, and I want you, Flavia, to share something you're grateful for. And I want you who are listening to share with us one thing that you are grateful for today or this week. So you can share with us on any place that you can find us, but we would love to hear from you. And I am very grateful for books this week. Oh my God, I love books. They bring me so much joy and so much, I don't know, it's like a world that you get to build in your brain, at least for me, and I interact with the characters. So I am very grateful for books and for writers this week.
Nice. I am grateful for life and how, but I will be specific.
Okay.
Wait a second. How many different things there are to experience. And I do say that because we are recording this podcast on the 31st of January and there is a comet in the sky right now. And I'm so excited to see it. I forgot the name of the comet, but it hasn't passed Earth in 50,000 years. So
cool.
Oh my God, it's so cool to have these little things, not so little in this case, happening in our lives and making things so exciting.
Yay! I love that. So tell us, what are you grateful for? And thank you for being here with us. We love you.
Thank you so much. We love you.
Thank you for sharing, for liking, for following us around. Yeah.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.